back of the tent. The life jackets are similar to those placed in your cabin. Donning instructions are posted inside the tender. Please do not smoke while on the tender boat. The boarding gates have been closed at this time of safety. If you are seated near the gates, please keep your hands inside the tent to board our tent.
You are right now viewing Portland. Good.
Oh, you're doing the selfie. I can't do
The second story above the front door, you can see those balcony doors in that federal style. This is federal architecture, 1807. We'll take a right-hand turn here. If you go through the Portland Museum of Art today, and I'll point that out in a moment, you can come right down inside this home. It's all part of the museum. Look at this copper leaf tree on our right. This is a copper beechwood, over 100 years old. In excellent health. Look at the trunk of the tree. Copper beechwood. Okay, we take a look to our right now, and look to the right of the brick path, about halfway in, you see a young lady kneeling over, made out of field stones. Everybody see her?
Yeah.
They say she's trying to pick up pennies from the copper tree. I think she's just stoned. Oh, she's out there every day. I've seen her twice today. Okay, moving right along. Large brick building on your right of art. Well worth a couple hours of your time. Look to your right. See that triangular shaped building? Looks like a mini Times Square there. 1826. Hayes Building. Doors on the windows. The columns at the door. Romanesque revival. Now back in 1912, James Baxter was a philanthropist. And he felt the city could use a public library. So he donated that $1 a week to stay there. Price has gone up. I'm going to pull over here for a moment and see if I can see anything through the clouds there. Oh, just barely. I was hoping for a little bit better. All right, let me go a little bit forward. And you can see there's a little bit of a tower with a strobe light. See the strobe light? Now look 4 fingers, if you will, to the left of it. Very faint mountain in the distance. Everybody got that? It's a very faint one. That is Mount Washington. And in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. That's about 88 miles away. It's a little hazy today. There's still snow on Mount Washington. Back in the 1850s, with the prosperity that was going on in the city and the country, people began moving up to this west end of the city and building these lavish homes on your left-hand side. Enjoy them as we go down through. And to give you an example, they're all over 100 years old. See these two folks walking up the stairs here on your left? That home was built in 1901. Look how stately and well maintained it is. That happens to be called, gosh, I lost it. That is a single family home today. Gothic architecture.
Just goes on and on.
150 years old wooden structure. Wonderful example. It's probably a English country cottage, maybe. A little large for a cottage, though. We go by now. I want you to look in the bay windows on the right-hand side. You can look all the way through the home.
Oh yeah, sure can. Yeah.
Bunch of peeping toms. The most prominent residential architect from Portland was John Calvin Stevens. During the mid to late 1800s, John Calvin Stevens built some of the finest shingle-style country homes in the nation. On this street we're turning down are 12 of those homes. To give you the flavor now, everything on the left-hand side all the way down, early 1900s. Everything on the right-hand side, mid to late 1800s. Stevens liked to use a combination of architectural styles in the same dwelling. Let's look on your right here. See that stonework in that brick wall from the 1870s? Look between all those stones there and see how they're interlaced with different sizes and styles of brick. But how it all goes with the shingles, his signature, the shingles. Very adventurous, late 1800s. Okay, I'm going to pull, oh look at these tulips on your left. They're beautiful. We're going to pull over here for a reason. I want everybody to have...
On the left, stop number 13. Griefing ceremonies. And out of respect to those people visiting here in Halifax griefing their lost family members, they decided the Mackie Bennett would not come back to Carlson's Wharf as it was so open. They would come further down to the right, close to the high wall of the bridge where they could be hidden from journalists, everyone who wanted to get their prying eye to see how bad the disaster really was. We made sure that there was privacy surrounding that event here in Halifax. So much so, there was even a journalist who had some footage. He was reportedly out on a ship in the harbor. That's how they got the footage of the unloading of the bodies. And that footage was later seized and destroyed by officials. We are now approaching the last stop on the tour before we go totally round trip. We have a few minutes to drive to the next attractions, which is Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, as well as Government House, the oldest house in Canada, oldest legal house in Canada where they made legislation, and as well some beautiful Georgian architecture lays all along the stop that we're going to let you off at, especially around the banks of Nova Scotia, the old marble and gold front doors of those buildings. But if you are an art fan, I do highly recommend the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. There is all kinds of different artwork, including folk artwork, native artwork, even wartime artwork. A lot of war representations of the First World War, where the Nova Scotia Battalion and the Canadian Army played a major role in the Battle of Vimy Ridge, a very stalemate of a battle fought for years and years ago. Any progress when the Nova Scotia Battalion showed up, they actually broke that stalemate in the first couple days of showing on the war front in the First World War. It's quite amazing. You can see representations of that at our art gallery, or maybe you've heard or seen the movie Maudie, it's called. It came out last year, and it's an autobiography about the life and times of modern folk artist Maud Lewis. Yes, Maud Lewis. She's right. It kind of tells the story about how many people got brought aboard these privateering ships, promised that there was going to be no violence, and they was going to go on board and say, "How do you do? We are going to take your stuff," and that would be it. Of course, times are different. On the right here, though, this is the privateering warehouses. You can see how secure they would have been, especially this one. Old iron blocks. No one got anything back from the privateers after they took it from you. The next stop on our tour, it is for our Casino, Nova Scotia, stop number 12. If you're used to getting taxed on your gambling winnings here in Canada, all tax-free winnings at the casino and so forth, so you can expect that. There is, of course, facilities and this double-lane highway right where the boardwalk was, right where we are now developing some of our multi-million-dollar condos, right there in the downtown core on the waterfront. It was supposed to expand all the way through there, down to your cruise ship docks, along the way demolishing some of our oldest buildings along the waterfront, dating back to the 1780s these buildings were. So we get about right to this hill. We look down the hill to the left by the green light. We can see the office leasing sign. That's the location of a protest that took place. The city people of Halifax didn't want to see this double-lane highway knock down some of the oldest buildings in our town. You know what? That protest actually didn't set up until the wrecking ball came back, swung crashing into the Morris Tea Room building, bounced right off it without doing any damage to those iron bricks. That was enough for the effects of St. Paul's Church. There's a number of history tied along with that church. Of course, it was the first building in Halifax, right? Well, you can see a huge wooden piece of shrapnel jammed in the walls by the pews of that church, jammed in the walls from the Halifax explosion. And as well, there's a ghost story saying that a clergy member was looking through his window at the time of the explosion, and now forever his silhouette is laid there, up in the top, in the clergy room's chamber at St. Paul's Church. Now behind us, we are approaching the next stop on tour for Murphy's on the Water restaurant. It is stop number 11 on the tour. Great place to go to eat is also where the ferry terminal is located. It's a great chance. If you do notice an extra military presence in the city today in the North End, they're doing a special military training they do twice a year at Halifax. They're just doing active intruder training. So if you see extra military presence around the bases today, there's just a training day, training ceremony day. Bit of a breakdown in the middle of lunch rush. For the third time, it will be a huge, horrible disaster. Well, get this. The bridge did actually collapse in the Victorian era a couple times. So when our city built the modern bridge in the 50s, they actually talked. The sister city of Dartmouth is a great place to visit if you want to spend an hour or two over at their waterfront. I do recommend it. Plenty of things to see and do on the other side of the harbor. On our next stop, we will just stop you off right in front by the ferry terminal. You can pay about $2.75. Wait to get on the ferry, ask for a transfer slip, and get right back over to Halifax very easy. Love this building, love this shipyard. On the left, it is the Halifax Irving Shipyard. It was a federally awarded government contract project. It's projected to give billions of dollars and over 10,000 jobs for our economy. They built these Arctic patrol vessels, that ship that you see there, they built them start to finish here at this shipyard. Opened up approximately 4 years ago, and with special partnerships from our local trade colleges, we have successfully employed all kinds of people here at our dockyards, which is lovely. So many of our young workers, after getting educated here, go off to work in the western part of Canada. It was tough on our economy here, so this is a sign of better things to come. As well, time of the Great Depression. And while fishermen of that time period, they raced each other and they like to brag about it, it was actually a good story for the public, as it helped distract them from their daily anxieties and depressions of that time period. Well, the Blue Nose in the period of racing down towards the Massachusetts and back up, against other fishing schooners. They never lost a single race. Blue Nose was a well-built, fast ship. Unfortunately, she was down doing a cargo delivery mission down. And here's the other bridge. This is the McDonald Bridge. It was constructed in the 1950s. And they say this bridge location has always had a bridge since the 1800s, had a drawbridge style back in the day in the Victorian era. But there was a Mi'kmaq tribe across the way in Dartmouth. They are the local into what I described as the spoon of the Halifax Harbor, the mouth of the spoon. This is the Bedford Basin. It's the largest part of our harbor. And of course behind the Fairview Line shipping containers lies all that history of the First and Second World War, when many of the ship's fleet docked here in the Bedford Basin. It was secret times, wasn't it, back then in war times? Phones were tapped, you weren't allowed to speak about everything. Remember I mentioned the ship leaving in a convoy? Well, no one knew when the convoy would leave. Of course, no one in town, so you could go to bed. The harbor and streets filled with military and Navy members. Now we can see into the narrow channel of our Halifax Harbor by the bridge. See the 3 red and white smokestacks? That is a landmark known as the Narrows. The harbor is shaped like a spoon. So your cruise ship, it came into the handle of the spoon just by the bridge, by those 3 red and white smokestacks. It's really narrow to the narrow channel, and then of course it opens up to the mouth of the spoon. We call that the Bedford Basin. It was large enough and protected enough to host all of those world ships fleet during wartime. So you're gonna get a chance to see that just in a bit here. Lovely views up at the top of Citadel Hill Fortress. If you ever wondered what is the difference between a fort and a fortress, well, get this, a fortress is a fortification inside the city limits, making Halifax Citadel a fortress, and a fort, well, it's just a fort outside the city limits, kind of protecting, overlooking it. This is the big overview of the Halifax Commons now, just down towards where those flags are, all that big green area. It's perfect for letting your livestock graze back in the Victorian colonial eras. But on the left-hand side, this is where we can keep our animals now. It is our high school, one of the newest ones built. Of course, all jokes aside, it's a very modern society. Of won a 4-star rating for environmental sustainability, which is very lovely. All the modern amenities are now seen at the Commons. You see the tennis courts. We have our skate park back there across the street from the skate park, the emergency room. Not a bad piece of city planning. There you are. And we see the landscapers out working hard on this beautiful sunny morning. The grass is finally growing again. We've had a number of events at Halifax Commons. Pope has done a reading for us, as well as Sir Paul McCartney came and did a show for us, spoke pre-2010. We don't have many shows in the Halifax Commons with such a beautiful green space. We have the Friends of the Commons Society helping protect it from events you can imagine. On a very rainy day, big rock concerts comes into town, just tear all the beautiful grass up. So generally, we hold our concerts at the flat area of Citadel Hill. You curious? We are now kind of approaching what divides the north end and the south end of our city. Military or clergy members. We needed people to grow food, so we looked to German society as they were very well trained at it. And they settled up here on the street just in front of us as we go through this roundabout. Agricola. Back at that time there was many fields to sow. Then it kind of grew into a working class area. You can kind of feel how the street narrows down. There's a different feel to the houses in the area. This building on the right that's all done up with statues was the first building to ever get power in Halifax. Was the Armory. They're doing some facial reconstructive surgery to it. We do have a stop for you folks coming up right in the middle of Agricola Street. This is kind of a big Central Parks idea. It was all part of one park system back in the Victorian era, now separated into a few different sections. It's still lovely though. There's a number of history along with the Halifax Commons. It was gifted to us and still owned by the UK government, and says that the people of Halifax deserve a green place to stay. It's lovely for them. We have some horse stables up in the middle of the city here on the right. These horse stables, they're built in 1909 to host the firemen's horses and the police brigade horses as well. In the mid-1930s, it changed to what it is now, the Junior Bengal Lancers, which is a prestigious young equestrian society. It opened up just about the time of cars become popular for a way for youth to stay involved in horseback riding. Their choreographer put on a show jumping routine, which turned out to be quite appealing to the eye, quite popular. They traveled down to the United States, the horse jumping show crew, to perform shows, even when Queen Elizabeth was still Princess Elizabeth on her first visit to Canada here in Halifax. In '51, they performed for her. Which is lovely. There we are on the left now, just kind of behind us. This large hill was formed in the Ice Age. It was a glacial draw. And when Sir Edward Cornwallis, our city's founder, came, he thought that was a perfect vantage point up on our hill. The hill fortress, its cannons are put to very good use. Every day at noon, they fire off a blank at a huge cannon up at the top of the hill. We call it the noontime gun. All it really does is signal lunchtime. I guess signal the time of noon. So if you do hear a large bang coming from the top of this fortress today, it is just the traditional noontime gun, as the only day you won't hear it is Christmas Day. And this is the fourth fortress that was built up here. The first three, they kind of washed away because they were built with mud and sods with the harsh Canadian weather, often wet and freezing, washed it away. It took about 26 years to construct this whole fortress up here, finally completed just after about the 1820s approximately. And it did a great job of overlooking our city. Using your imagination, imagine all the modern high-rises aren't in your way. What a commanding view of the harbor to the right. And everyone down in the city could go around, look at the city clock, which is also on the right in the middle of the field. Duke of Kent got that installed. He was in charge of the military here. He made sure that everyone in town could see all four sides of the clock. A family actually lived in that clock tower right up until the 1970s, when the property was sold to the government of Canada. Free rent as long as they winded the clock 2 times a day. Not a bad gig for those folks in the clock tower. We're going to see the full authentic Citadel Hill experience walking by here. Step around the gates of this park and you'll be fully immersed in what life was like in 1769 and British ruled Halifax. That's why you see the Union Jack flag flying high inside the fortress. So this is now stop number 7 on our tour. It is actually Canada's most visited National Historic Site, and great views from all the way around the third one of the life vessels, and got the safety here in Halifax. Now, of course, her body is buried at the graveyard that is just coming into view on the left. Kind of makes her the only person aboard the Titanic to be buried in Halifax who also survived it. Very sadly, everyone else who's buried here in the city aboard the Titanic, they perished on that ill-fated ship. A number of other prominent members of our society are buried at this grave site, including Mr. Alexander Keith, the brewery owner, who is also the mayor, if you remember me mentioning, and as well a gentleman named Joseph Howe. I'll tell his story near the end of the tour. Snaked flower beds on the right hand side on the Halifax Public Gardens are just coming into bloom now. Coming in now, it's the big jewel of our main city, the Halifax Public Gardens. They are officially recognized as a public gardens. There's only 2 Victorian gardens in Canada. The other one is all the way on the west coast in Victoria, British Columbia. So you've come to the right part of Canada today, and our gardens totally free of charge. They're lovely. You can go for a stroll around them. But I want you to know this, there's actually a difference between your regular city park and a Victorian park. You need to meet a number of requirements to be an actual Victorian park. Yes, you should have 4 iron gates blocking in all 4. A number of ducks out of public gardens. People used to love go feed them with bread, but the gardens actually became so overran with ducks, we had to move some to another place. But there was a family that was allowed to stay, so there's a little family of city ducks hanging out here at our gardens. But as well, we have Toulouse geese as well. It is lovely here at the gardens. You're going to see international floras and faunas, because the Victorian Gardens is generally a place for education, for learning. So you won't only see local plants, but you might see the local agave plant, which has just got too big for our greenhouse, and we brought it right outside here. We are going to pull up now, just alongside these two facilities. Again, it's all free of entry, and there is a little coffee shop there. So no one in Halifax knew he was here, but he was spotted.
Together. If you look at the home, you can see the entryway is on the right-hand side. That would have been the old service entrance. That's where the milkman went in, where the iceman would go in. If you look as we go by in the foundation, you can see that where there used to be a 15-foot wide formal entrance right onto the street. Now we look up to, and this is why I brought everybody over. Well, first off, let's look at the brick, the uneven brick in the foundation and in the walls that he did intentionally to give the walls texture. Now I brought everybody over here for a reason. I want you now, if you're able to look to the roof. You look up there and you see what we call probably a gambrel roof. But is that a gambrel? Watch as we go by and see how on this left side part of the roof comes down and actually forms one of the walls, making that a mansard style. That is called a mansard style home.
Yeah, sure is.
You look up the driveway, you see what we call the garage. It's the old carriage house. Particularly noticeable, the next driveway to it, the one here on your right with the brick treads. You look all the way up there, and those big barn doors actually roll. That was the carriage house. Now, as soon as Stevens built that home for himself, everybody in town said, I want one. So he built the next three on the right in succession. What's kind of neat about them, look to the right of the home and you see kind of a turret. He's got the same turret on all three of the homes, but if you follow the turret up, it's different on each home to the roof. Really exemplifies his design imagination. Now, for those of you that might never have seen these before, I'm sure a lot of you have, on the gray one up here at 1 o'clock where I'm pointing, look to the roof, and you can see those slate shingles. It's all stone slate roofing.
Wow.
Today, every one of those shingles will cost you $1,000 to replace. Look at the driveway of this home. See those stone treads going up. See how they're somewhat narrow, close together? About the width of a carriage. Very good. Let's go down here. We'll stop one more here on this street. Take a look on your left. Richard Webb House, 1903. Richard Webb was a prominent lawyer in Portland. And he loved to entertain influential people, among them President William Howard Taft. Spent the night in the home on your left. Home on your left is a good example of a combination of federal and Georgian architecture. Now, what do I mean by that? You see on the second story, you have those 5 windows in that federal style. But drop down to the first floor, you start seeing arches over the windows with keystones. Look at the columns by the front door, and they architected and developed the very first postcard. And his name escapes me for the moment, but I will have it. What's his name? Yeah. Yeah, enjoy these homes on your left. They're absolutely gorgeous. I wouldn't want to try to heat them. But let me give you an idea. Look at this home coming up on your left now. You can see the gardens. And look at the home. 1911, George West Mansion. George West was the owner of several large utility companies back then. This home is not a museum. It's not open to the public. It's a single family private home. There are 17 rooms, 10 fireplaces, 9 bedrooms. Sold for about $4.5 million about 3 years ago. I'm retired. I do this just part-time. But we like to cruise as well, take a cruise once in a while. And we enjoy eating our evening meal in the dining room because we always meet new people and you kind of not hang out with them during the day, but it's kind of nice to have a familiar face at nighttime. You exchange stories. What did you do today? What did we do today? I'm going to give you a story now that the only people on those 2 cruise ships that know this story are the ones that will have ridden with Brancy today. Okay? This is unique for you. Take a look on your left-hand side. Now look at the right of the home and see that gate work on the right. Everybody got it? Okay, imagine a real estate broker purchasing this home about, see now it's about 12 years ago. She purchased it as an investment. When she purchased the home, that gate work was not there. She wanted something to close off that courtyard to give her a little privacy. She shopped around, took her about 6 months. She finally found that particular gate in an antique store. It happened to be right here in Portland. So she was able to get in touch with a contractor, local, took him down and look at it. He went down and looked. And he said, yes, I think I can make it fit. It'll cost you about $500 to install the gate. She said, okay. She went to work the day of the installation. When she came home early because she wanted to watch the progress. She got back here about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The gate work was all installed and contractor was gone. Yet tucked inside the front door of the home was a bill for $75. Now he quoted her $500. She was confused, pleased, but she wanted to call him up, see what was going on. He answered the phone. Ma'am, we dragged that gate up there this morning. It took us 45 minutes and 12 bolts. You bought the original gate to that 100-year-old home. All the iron hardware was right in the side of the brick building.
Wow. Good story.
That one is for you, folks.
Very good.
Crude oil over here at the pipelines. There's your cruise ships down on the left. When we get across, we'll be in South Portland, Maine. It's its own separate city. Back in Longfellow's day, this was a wooden footbridge. And he would leave his childhood home that I showed you. He'd walk down the waterfront. It cost him 2 pennies to walk across the bridge. And he would spend all his days right out at Portland Head Light where you're going, doing whatever poets do.
under the seat.
I will see you next. Oh, sorry. Is that yours? What's your name? Me. From Florida. David, Florida. Think you can do that? Okay. Were you retired Air Force? No. Navy? Almost retired. Almost retired. Still in service? Yeah, working. Okay, what do you do? 3, 2, 1, fly! Wow! Give a round of applause, second place now. You can see, folks, the bulletin of the aircraft should be going more farther than number 1.
Oh, I see.
Really
Which
good.
one is best?
Yeah, that is
So
good.
there are 160 officers, no? We opted.
Squad 05.
Yeah, I took.
What's your name?
She wanted to come here. I took a
Fred,
premature
what's your name?
retirement, 5 years with full pension.
Good.
Ready?
One could take
2, 1,
retirement
fly!
in 5 years.
Start with a medium-sized towel. You start rolling it. All the way. Ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a baby snake. Now you have the big towel. You cover the snake. I have no idea what we're doing right now. Gonna make like little waves. We're putting a little part on top, up, and then you fold it on top of the other waves, on top of the snake. So we create a total of 5 waves this way. The rest of the towel in front, you took it in front. You wrap the towel around the little snake. Alright, I have no idea what this animal is called, so let's call it an elephant. Oh, the English name is a lobster. Alright, very nice. You've got a lobster as well. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do is we're going to put all these towel animals, put them right here on the table, and just give you a minute or so to make a nice photo with it. Now don't forget, now we start rolling, let's get the short side to the center. And then the other side as well. Now, once you're sure that both rolls are equal, flip it over. And once again, we're going to put 1/3 on top and then 1/3 on the other. Squeeze it. Now we're going to use a rubber band to make sure it stays in this position. And hopefully the rubber band doesn't fly away. So now we're going to roll up towel with an elastic band to rub in it. Then we continue with the next towel. The next 2 towels actually. 2 baby towels. Some square ones. Alright, this one we're going to make it zigzagging it, so we can make it like a fan. One up, one down, all the way until the end. Then you fold it into half, sideways. What you're going to do is you're going to take this and tuck it between 2 rolls in the towel that you just created. We start with the other baby towel. This one you fold it diagonally in half, so you have the rectangle, rather the triangle. And then you start rolling it from the long side towards the point, but don't go all the way. You fold it sideways in half. Now there's 2 points sticking out, you open it up. Then you're going to tuck this in the front. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a very nice horse. That's a very good horse. Alright, very nice, Elias. Thank you very much. Then we continue with the last cow folder for today. Very nice. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that was a big crowd. Next up, we got Elias. And this time we have a medium-sized towel and a baby towel. So we start with a medium-sized towel. We start rolling from the short side to the center. And then the other short side to the center as well. Now make sure that both sides are equal. You fold them in half with the rolls on the outside. Fill out the little coins. Two of them in one hand, two in the other hand. And you put it out. And we got ourselves a baby roasted chicken. Right, this time make sure that there's a little space between the two rolls, right here. And we continue with the baby towel square one. You fold it in half so it's a rectangle. And then you start rolling it. You fold it sideways in half. You tuck it between this baby roasted chicken. Then we're going to use a big towel. So yeah, this fold we don't start with the biggest one first, we start with the medium one first. And you start rolling from the short side to the center. Then from the other short side as well. Rolling, 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 rolling on the cruise ship. Alright, so both sides, make sure they're equal once again. Fold them in half, and not actually in half, this time in thirds. So one third on top and then the other third on top of that. You squeeze it, and then on the bottom there's two rolls. You roll one side to one side, the other to the other. So it goes around the towel. It's actually a lot harder than it looks like. So you roll all the way around. And then we got ourselves a very nice hat. We put the hat on top and we got ourselves a turtle. Very nice.
It is nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, the majority of our crew members here with the flags are actually very proud as they are carrying the flags of the countries that they represent. On board the Grandeur of the Seas, we come from 56 countries around the world. We all work together, we play together, we serve you this product together in peace and harmony, and we are our own mini United Nations, and we think that the world can take a page out of this. We want to thank you for cruising. However, before we get into that, I'm going to call out the countries that are represented amongst our crew members. You will see some people who will come out and show their pride. And of course, we want you to make a little bit of noise for each one of the countries, but hoop and holler for the country that you are from if you match any of our crew here on board. So, we're going to start alphabetically. We're going to start in the A's with Australia. 3 crew members. members from Canada. Thank you, Canada. One crew member from Chile. There he is. 19 crew members from China. 4 crew members from Colombia. 5 crew members from Costa Rica. 14 crew members from Croatia. 1 crew member from the Dominica. 5 crew members from Dominican Republic. 1 crew member from Ecuador. Crew members from France. Our food and beverage director and guest services manager. Thank you, France. Hold on to your seats, ladies and gentlemen. 1 crew member from Germany. Only 4 more minutes left of this song, everybody. Thank you, Esther, our executive housekeeper from Germany. Oh, she almost wants to take a seat, don't you? Very good. Very good. 1 crew member from Grenada. 5 crew members from Guyana. 2 crew members from Haiti. 2 crew members from Hungary. 1 crew member from Iceland. And that is Captain Thor. 116 crew members from India. Thank you, Indonesia. Very beautiful. 1 crew member from Ireland. 5 crew members from Italy. Thank you, Italy. 42 crew members from Jamaica. Just give me the lights and pass the door. What's a lot of buckle more? Yeah, let me know the signs and I got to know. It's what it's gonna take my flow, cause I'm in the vibes and I got my door. Oh. Thank you, Jamaica. 6 crew members from Kenya.